What if the person most responsible for getting America safely into orbit wasn't a pilot, a general, or even someone in mission control, but a mathematician with a pencil and the nerve to say run it again? Catherine Coleman, later Catherine Johnson, was born in 1918 in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. It wasn't a place known for laboratories or observatories. It was a place where work was practical and days were counted by chores and seasons. She counted something else: steps to the water pump, fence posts to the property line, stars until sleep insisted. In a house where money was careful and time was not wasted, school was non negotiable. Her father, Joshua, took whatever jobs kept the family steady: farming, repairing, tending to the famous Green Bay Resort. Her mother, Joylette, was a teacher who believed that if you can give a child anything, give them a head start. There was a catch. Her town didn't offer schooling for black students past 8th grade. That's a kind of obstacle that quietly edits a life. The Colemans didn't accept the edit. During the school year, the family moved so Catherine could attend high school in Institute, West Virginia. It meant distance. It meant cost. It meant choosing possibility over comfort. By 10, she was in high school. By 15, she was in college at West Virginia State. She wasn't hurried, she was ready. College was less a place and more a set of people. One of them was William Shiflin Clayder, only the third African American to earn a PhD in mathematics. He looked at Catherine and did something unusual. He wrote new courses that didn't exist yet, because the existing ones were too small for the questions she was already asking. It would be easy to say born genius and move on, but that explanation robs the story of its moving parts. What actually happened was simpler and harder. She had curiosity that turned the world into a counting game. She had support that kept doors open when the map said no. She had mentors who set the bar higher and then higher again. And she had repetition. She worked problems until the symbols felt like muscle memory. So the lesson is that extraordinary isn't a spark you're born with. It's a fire that starts with a small tinder, noticing, being noticed, and doing it again tomorrow. There's a moment in lives where preparation meets a door that wasn't there yesterday. For Catherine, it was Langley Research Center in Virginia, NACA, not yet NASA, where rooms full of human computers turned experimental data into flight-worthy numbers. Just papers, pencils, slide rules, adding machines and minds. She joined the West Area Company section, segregated by customs and law, calculating aeronautical loads and trajectories. The work was precise, relentless, and invisible to most. She didn't try to be visible, she tried to be right. A temporary assignment opened in the Flight Research Division. The assignment ended, she stayed. She asked why an equation had that shape. She asked where the numbers went after they left her desk. She didn't want to be a pair of hands, she wanted to be a pair of eyes. So the lesson is that the fastest way to stop being the help is to understand the system you are helping. Because once you can see the whole machine, people start asking you where to turn the wrench. From here, a pattern appears. Three quiet plays she ran for years. If a machine printed a number, she traced it back. If a colleague calculated a vector, she resolved it component by component. Not to win arguments, to respect the consequences. Rockets don't forgive routing errors. She could translate math to people. Engineers heard physics, pilots heard procedure. She gave both what they needed without losing the truth of conversion. That made her rare. When meetings were for engineers only, she asked who decided what counted as engineers. When calculations would alter a flight path, she didn't just send numbers, she sat with them until they took off. None of these are dramatic in the moment. They are habits that compound. And compounding is how small edges become reputations. So the lesson is that trust isn't loud. It's the residue of accuracy, translation, and presence repeated until people forget you could be wrong. The early 1960s put math into public view. America wanted to put a human into orbit and bring him back alive. That sentence hides terrifying detail. Launch windows that move while you blink, ascent trajectories that have to thread a needle, re-entry corridors where too steep cooks you and too shallow skips you out into the dark. Computers fill rooms and hum with certainty until they didn't. On the day that mattered, astronaut John Glenn looked at the machine outputs and asked for an all ritual, a human being he could trust. Get a girl to check the numbers. The girl was Katherine Johnson. She reran the equations for ground track, for orbit insertion, for retrofire timing, for the geometry of safe fall back into air. Pencils, paper, a slide rule, hours of attention focused like light through a lens. She confirmed the IBM. Glenn reportedly said he would fly until she did, and then he flew. The vision wasn't perfect, spaceflight never is, but the numbers held because precision wasn't an aesthetic, it was a promise. So the lesson is that credibility is kind of gravity. When things get uncertain, everything falls towards the person who has never been casual with the truth. Mercury gave away to Gemini, Gemini to Apollo. Each step was a new map. Orbital rendezvous, freedom trajectories, launch windows to rendezvous with a moving moon, re-entry corridors that assumed equipment might fail at the worst possible second. Catherine's name appears on technical reports that few outside the agency ever read, but everyone inside relied on when it was time to light engines. This is what adoption looks like. The formulas change shape, the habits don't. Verify, translate in the room. The physics got weirder, the posture stayed the same. So the lesson is that success isn't a single talent, it's a way of approaching new constraints with the same discipline. Because if the habit is portable, your edge survives the transition. The easy version of the story would end there, but the harder truth sits beside it. Catherine worked in a segregated world. She signed calculations that traveled further than she could comfortably walk in her own building. She juggled professional brilliance with being the mother of three. Credit sometimes leaked away. Meetings sometimes had invisible doors. The math didn't care, but people did. And yet, she kept adding values in places where value couldn't be ignored. It's don't run on opinions. Written windows don't move because someone underestimates you. Reality has a way of rewarding the people who refuse to let their work be sloppy, even when their world won't let their path be straight. So the lesson is that resilience isn't loud either. It's choosing to be precise in public long enough that the work forces the room to make space. Later in her career, she contributed to space shuttle work and Earth observing missions. Honors arrived, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, a NASA building bearing her name, a book and a film that introduced her to millions. The public finally saw her face behind the equations. Awards are kind of echo. Important, yes, but still an echo. The sound itself is the system that survives you. In Catherine's case, an institutional culture that treats verifications as scared. A model for how technical people can speak across disciplines. A template for being presence where decisions land. So the lesson is to invest in the habit you want to outlive your name because systems keep flying after the plot ends. What's left if you strip away the myth and leave the mechanism? A child who counted because the world invited counting, parents who moved a family so school could stay open, mentors who raised the ceiling and then asked politely and insistently if she'd climb, work done until the numbers felt like language, questions asked until the model made sense, then, quietly, three plays run every week for decades. Verify, translate, stay in the room. So the lesson is simple enough to sound small. Become a person whose careful work others rely on when it's time to fly. If that sounds unglamorous, remember the rockers got the headlines, the math got them home.